So today we're going to be talking about the team dimension, and specifically, we're going to touch on three core competencies, which are teamwork, communication, and engagement. Now, we've been talking about the three dimensions of leadership capabilities, which are strategy, team execution. We know that as a leader, we have a responsibility to set the direction, to manage a team, and that includes relationships, communication, motivation, and interpersonal dynamics. And finally, we need to execute the plan. So to be competent as a leader, you need to be proficient on the three leadership capabilities. Each leadership capability has three core competencies. So in total, we have nine. We learned about strategy last class, and we talk about three core competencies on the strategy dimension. And so today we're going to focus on the team dimension. So core competencies, again, for the team dimension: teamwork, communication, and engagement. Um, this ability also involves engaging employees and keeping morale high on teams, using effective communication such as listening, feedback, and dialogue, working with assumptions and interpretations, managing conflict, and cultivating trust on your team. So, my opinion is that this is one of the most difficult areas or dimensions to master. At least this is the one I struggle the most with personally, because it's very difficult when you're dealing with people. You have to deal with a lot of personalities, worldviews, leadership styles, a lot of psychology. Everybody gets motivated different, everybody wants different things, so it's not one size fits all. So there's no one universal law to deal with something. So you have to really mold yourself. And again, I always say it's very easy to control your own performance. You're an individual, you understand what motivates you, you know what you want. And it's very easy to manage your own performance. But when you're responsible for other people, when you're responsible for the performance of other people or a team, it becomes very difficult because it's very hard to, you know, make people do what you want them to do. Some people resort to manipulation, but we know that this is very short term. This is not going to give you long term results with your team or influence with your team. So the purpose of this class is to learn how to motivate, engage with your team, and have communication. So obviously your team can get to a performing stage where they're like killing it, when they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, when there's efficiency and all of that. So we're going to talk about the stages of team development. And basically, here it is. So the stages of team development, we have four stages, and every team evolves through these stages. You cannot get to the final stage without going through one, two, and three. So we have forming, storming, norming, and performing. Again, every team goes through these stages. Not everybody makes it to the final stage, by the way, but you cannot move on to the next stage until you fulfill that one. So the first one is, again, forming, then storming, norming, performing. And the way I like to see it, just so it's easier, it's like forming, it's like the beginning of time, the beginning of the team, the beginning stages. And then storming is that, conflict, that back and forth with, getting to know each other. So it's there's some tension there. And then the norming is like when we kind of stabilize everything, goes back to normal or apparently normal. And then finally performing stage, which is like everybody's just doing what they need to be doing and there's a lot of efficiency. So I try to see it that way so it's easier for me to remember. But let's go into more details. Let's go into the forming stage and what that is. So team members are getting to know each other in this stage. Uh, we're defining team goals and establishing team dynamics. So again, it's the very beginning stages of the team. It's like everybody's on their tippy toes, everybody's on their best behavior. You don't want to say anything to offend anybody. You don't want to give your opinion because you kind of like analyzing the territory, So this is is a very kind of when you get a boyfriend for the first time or a girlfriend, It's like it's all, you know, uh butterflies. So this is the forming stage. But we quickly move into the storming stage, and this is characterized by the clash of individual ideas and preferences. This stage can involve conflict and frustration. So this is where people, there's going to be a lot of opinions. There's going to be some clashes. People are already, showing the true self. And again, there can be conflict, but it's normal. So it's good to analyze where your team is at because, again, the behaviors of your team, they will fit a stage. And as long as, you're in that stage, it is normal. So in the forming stage, it's normal to have conflict. You have to have some sort of conflict for you to move to the next one. So again, this is all normal. You just have to understand what it is so you can recognize it. And once you satisfy this stage, then you move to the norming stage. So in the norming stage, things begin to stabilize with established roles, improve communication, and decrease conflict. So here you're going to have your KPIs, you're going to have your job descriptions are very clear. Everybody knows what they need to do. Now we have more communication. We're using tools like the feedback model and things like that. And we understand how communication is important and it affects how the team works. And so that decreases the conflict. So, we get into the norm, that normality that the team should have. And then finally, once you fulfill that stage, you you come to the performing stage, and this is the holy grail. This is where we want to be. Teams operate with efficiency, understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses, and focusing on performance improvement. This is where, everybody's on the same page. We have the same objective. We are being effective and efficient. We know what we want. We know the good things, the bad things about the team. We know their weakness, our strength, and we are extremely focused and performing. Not everybody makes it to this stage, unfortunately. Not every team makes it here. But if you understand the stages of the team and what you need to fulfill in each stage, then you're able to move your team along and hopefully get them to the performing stage. This is the happy place where we all want to be. Now, there are 4 phases to high performance teamwork. Because again, we care about performance. We're here, you want your team to perform. This is the whole point, right? You want your team to do the things that they need to do. And as a leader, you want to guide them and lead them through that. So the 4 phases are the alignment phase, the identification phase, the collaboration phase, and the high performance phase. And again, just like the ones we talked about, just like the stages, the phases also, you need to fulfill one phase to move to the next. You cannot move to the next until you fulfill the one that you're currently in. So the alignment phase. In this phase, you clarify values, purpose, and vision. You set realistic, quantifiable objectives. You clarify roles and responsibilities, organize for effectiveness, and establish team guidelines. Again, very important. And it makes total sense. When you hire people, again, if you're in a position where you get to hire people, you know that we hire based on our core values, right? Because that's the first thing. In the alignment phase, you need to make sure that the values are clear and the purpose and vision are clear. And the person that you're hiring and that you're bringing into your team aligns with that. Then you have to set realistic, quantifiable objective. Like, what is the expectation? What do you want from this person? What do you expect from this person? So you have to set those realistic expectations from the beginning. You have to clarify the roles and responsibilities because obviously if they don't know what they need to do, if they're not clear on that, they won't be able to get it done. And again, you need to be organized and make sure that they are established guidelines. Now, how to complete this phase? How to complete the alignment phase? In the alignment or forming phase, team member compliance tends to be high, yet goals may be unclear and communication may be guarded. Team subgroups rarely exist, largely because team members tend to avoid conflict and minimize differences at this early stage. For groups to complete this phase and climb to higher levels of performance, they must clarify the purpose and process and get all members moving in the same direction. So again, this is the beginning where everybody's like, yes, yes, everybody's compliant, everybody's eager to do what needs to be done, but not everything is clear, not everybody's communicating the way they're supposed to be communicating. Then we go to the next phase, identification phase. We refine goals and responsibilities, manage conflict skillfully, further clarify expectations, and reestablish accountability, cultivate and solidify team identity. So in this phase, that's where, we need to manage, that's where the conflict arises, the conflict that we talked about. And then as a leader, you need to manage this conflict. You need to learn how to manage this conflict. Again, this is normal. It will happen, but you need to understand it and you need to be able to manage the conflict. You need to clarify the expectations and you need to make sure that the roles and responsibilities are, refined, that everybody's clear. And then you get to the identification phase. More often than not, newly formed teams drop in performance measures as they break through the stability of the initial formation. This is why the identification phase is also called the storming phase. Counterintuitively, a strong team is actually increasing its effectiveness during this rocky period of time, characterized by increased conflict and tension. Subgroups now form, which may break along values and mindset lines around some commonly perceived interest. Now, this is interesting because there's going to be, again, conflict, but the performance is actually going to go up, like the effectiveness of the team, right? So you have a team, they're more effective now, but there's all this conflict. So leaders should expect to see increased member participation by decreased conformity and higher role dissatisfaction. This is where everybody starts complaining. Again, this is normal. You just have to manage it, right? Differences of opinions are now out in the open. Attempts to convert or coerce others into specific viewpoints are frequent. Now we're gonna convince people. We have the ones that are trying to, get their opinion. They have very strong opinions, and they want to convince people that my opinions are the ones that matters. So, but the important thing about this phase is that yes, there's conflict, but everybody's kind of like all the pieces are kind of trying to fall in place, and the team is effective. The effectiveness increases. The collaboration phase. Learn how this unique team best performs. So you have to understand the best way of the team for, to give you the best performance. Develop feedback path. So this is where, you use feedback model, engagement model, grow model for communication and feedback, and you leverage increasing autonomy for higher performance. So only a small percentage of team make it to the collaboration phase. Again, we spoke about that. Yes, there are 4 stages, but not everybody makes it to the final one. So this is this is when things get complicated. Now, the first 2 are normal. They're very intuitively. It happens almost, by nature. But then once you get to the collaboration phase, it's very hard to get over the hump, basically. Those that do have advanced beyond the simple aggregation of individual performances. The team is now ready to step into the genuine risk of conflict, joint effort, and collective action. During the collaboration phase, the team goals tend to become clear, as does its sense of priorities. Team members are more likely to report a renewed or improved sense of satisfaction. During this phase, members tend to draw barriers of communication and loosen expectations and assumptions about how things should be done. They also tend to lessen their need to solve, fix, and control outcomes. So this is where everybody, again, everybody's on the same page. There's more alignment. People are more satisfied. They understand what the priority is, the priorities are, and people are working together better. It flows a little better. And then finally, again, the holy grail, where we all want to be, the high performance phase. Anticipate each other's behavior and operate with extreme efficiency, encourage innovative thinking, solve problems quickly, practice team renewal. And then it's very important that you know number 3, solve problems quickly. In a team, your ability to succeed or to perform at your highest is to be able to solve problems. But better yet, solve problems quickly. The quicker you're able to solve a problem, the quicker you're able to move on and be in that high performance stage. Problems are normal in an organization. Problems will not go away. You will always have problems. If you have no problems, that means you're dying as an organization, as a team, that you have a lot of conformity, you're not innovative, you're not growing. So no problems equals no growth, and you're basically dying. So problems are good. I know that sounds weird. I know that sounds, strange, but it is true. You will always have problems, but your ability to solve them and solve them quickly, that's where the magic is. And in this phase, teams are able to do that. Now, how do we complete this stage? So again, very few teams reach this phase. Members of these elite teams may begin to report states of flow and acknowledge a palpable sense of trust, efficiency, and effectiveness within the team. Again, this is where everything flows. Everybody's on on point. Everybody's killing it. The team, they just understand each other. They're on the same page, and they're just, they are referred to as elite, so like the best of the best, because they just know what they need to do, and they just do it. Now we spoke about team renewal, and the best way of doing this is the 4 R's of team renewal. This is, to help you understand a little bit. And basically, what that stands for is reinvigorate the motivation and commitment, revitalize team meetings, recognize, reward, and celebrate the team's success, reconnect with values, purpose, and vision. And again, you are in the high performance stage. In order to remain on that phase, you have to be doing this. One of the steps is doing team renewal, and this is basically what you do. So you always have to, reinvigorate the motivation and the commitment. This is an ongoing thing. This is not a one-time thing. This is something that, you have to constantly be doing. You have to make sure that the team meetings are effective, that it's not like robotic, always the same thing, always the same format over and over again. Like, you have to make it interesting. You have to, revitalize that. And then obviously we always talk about recognition, rewarding, and celebrating the success. This is very important. When, again, we're always going to have problems, right? Problems are not going to go away. It's very easy to just focus on the problems. We cannot lose sight of the victories. We have to celebrate the good things. It cannot be all bad. Yes, feedback is important. Yes, constructive criticism is important. Yes, we need to address the weaknesses and the things that are not going well, but it is equally important to celebrate and recognize the things that are going well, and when the team is succeeding. And again, always, 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 the values, the purpose, and the vision, they have to be clear. You have to remind your team. It's Everybody in your team should know the core values. We have 7 core values, and everybody should know them by memory. So you should, as a leader, you should quiz your team, your team members, to make sure that everybody knows this. Because if they don't know what the core values are, more likely than not, your team, it's not at the high performance stage. Because there is no way that you can perform at a high capacity if you're not aligned with the values, the purpose, and the vision of the company. It's extremely difficult. So what we just covered, this relates to the competency of teamwork. Now we're moving to communication, right? Super important communication. I want you to look at this picture because when we talk about communication, this represents communication in a nutshell. And as a leader, you have to be able to effectively communicate. Note that I didn't say you have to communicate. I said effectively communicate because you can say all the right things, and that does not mean that your message is getting across effectively, that the receiver, the other person, actually understands what you said. So we have to check assumptions. People are not going to read your mind. And very often we fell into that trap. It makes perfect sense to us, so it should make perfect sense to the other person, right? No, wrong. Just because it makes sense to you doesn't mean the other person will understand it the same way. It is your job to mold yourself. Again, people are not supposed to figure you out or read your mind. As a leader, you're supposed to understand your audience and then communicate in a way that your audience can understand. Because you're not going to speak to a 5-year-old the same way you speak to a 50-year-old, right? It is different. If you want your message to get across effectively, you're going to use different words, different analogies, different tone. Same with employees. So this picture, what it represents is intent versus impact. And it's very important that you understand the difference. So the archer represent your intent to deliver, to communicate, right? The arrow represents the message. And then the target represents the impact. So, when people say, the intention is what matters? No, not really. That's not what really matters. Effectiveness, making sure the impact, that's what really matters. You can have the best intentions in the world and not have, but. So when you see an error, right, on the floor or, on the edge of the target, that means that you intended to send a message, but it didn't get through. So you have no impact. Now, when the message is communicated effectively, that's when the arrow hits the bullseye. So I feel like this is a this is a powerful image. It's very simple, but it represents what we're trying to accomplish with communication. Um, if you cannot master communication, it will be very hard for you to lead a team. Very hard. And again, that's why this dimension is so complex, and so many people, including myself, struggle with it because there are so many intricacies that you have to master. And again, communication is so difficult because we're so different, right? And we always expect people to think and act like us. And more likely than not, that would not be the case. So again, this is just a summary of what I just said, but I just want you to make sure that you understand that the goal of communication is to convey your message to others in a clear and unambiguous manner. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And by the way, this works with clients, team members, superiors, subordinates, spouses, everybody. Obviously, we know that communication is very important in any relationship that we have. And part of the team dimension is that we have to have relationship with the team, interpersonal relationships. So if you don't have proper communication, you're not going to have a good relationship. Now, most of communication. So we have telling, observing, collaborating, and asking. And if you look closely, you can see examples of what these modes of communication are. So for example, in the telling mode, we have recognition, feedback, presentation, debate. In the observing mode, we have reflective silence. In the collaborating mode, you have negotiation, coaching, brainstorming, dialogue, constructive conflict. And then in the asking mode, you have soliciting input, active listening, interviewing. Now, pay close attention to this and think about when we learn the feedback model. The feedback model has all of this. When you're using the feedback model, you are asking a lot of questions, right? Mostly you're asking questions. You are observing. Remember that you have to hold your knee to jump in. It's part of the feedback model. Then you are going to collaborate. There's going to be some coaching involved when you do the feedback model. And there's some telling also involved because you need to get to an objective. So that's why the feedback model is so powerful because it holds all the modes of communication. And again, you need to be able to communicate effectively. So you need to use all these modes of communication. Some are more effective than others, but as a whole, this is how we communicate as human beings. So if you have not mastered the feedback model, here it is again. This is a refresher. We already went through this. You should be practicing the feedback model. All of you in this call should be practicing this on a weekly basis. If you're not in a leadership position, it does not matter. You can still practice with a coworker, with a spouse, with a friend. This is again super powerful. You master this and you can be proficient in the area of communication. So, and again, this is just an example. We have the engagement model and the growth model, but this is my opinion is one of the most useful ones. It's simple, useful, and it's quick and gives great results. So just a quick, I'm not going to go into details because we already went through this in another class, but just a quick refresher of the feedback model. You ask for permission, you empty their cup, you ask a lot, you ask what's working, where are they getting stuck, and what might they do differently. And you ask in between, what else, but what else, what else, what else, what else, until they have nothing else to say. Then you build on what they said, and then you endorse what you agree with, and you give feedback. So again, very powerful, very simple, but it's only powerful if you use it. Now, this is the communication part, right? So it's mostly understanding how to communicate with the other person, making sure that the message gets through effectively using the tools that you were provided with to achieve this. And now we enter engagement. And again, I think out of the three competencies, one of the most challenging. How do you engage people? How do you motivate people, right? $1 million question. That's what everybody wants to know. I want to know too. So employee engagement relates to the level of an employee's connection and commitment to an organization. High levels of engagement promote retention of talent, foster customer loyalty, and improve organizational performance and productivity. If we want an employee to perform, they have to be engaged. So engagement is very important. So engagement and motivation, they go hand in hand, and we'll talk about it. But employee engagement is key for performance. And let's see what engaged versus disengaged looks like. When you have actively engaged workers or employees, they're loyal and productive. When they're not engaged, they average performers. When they're actively disengaged, they're unhappy and spreading discontent. Now, again, super important. This is very important to understand because whenever you have an actively engaged employee, they're loyal, they're productive. You don't really have to do much to engage those people. They're just like they're on a state of effectiveness, efficiency, and flow. And those are the people that they're loyal, they have your back, they're gonna do what they need to do. But why? Is it because they're smarter than the others? No. It's because they're actively engaged. Now, when they're not engaged, that's when you're going to see the performance drop. That's when you're going to see your suboptimal performers. And here's the thing. We tend to confuse not being able to perform at a high level with capacity, the person's capacity to do the job. And the reality is if you do a good job at the hiring, you are capable. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Every single person in this call and every single person in this company, it's able to perform the job. That does not mean they will do the job, but they have the capacity to do it. Otherwise, they would not be here. So they're capable and able, but that does not mean that they're willing. And so when you have an average performer, it's because they're not engaged. That's simple. It's not because they're not smart. It's not because they cannot do it. It's because simply they're just not engaged. Now we are gonna get why not? Maybe they're not motivated. We're gonna get into motivation now later on. But very important to know, they're not underperforming because they're not smart or because they're not able. It's just because they're not engaged. And then when you have the actively disengaged, that's where you have your drama queens, unhappy, always, spreading, the toxicity. They're super toxic and they're just disengaged. We now have this concept called quiet quitting. That's pretty much what it is. People just don't care. They're disengaged. Now there's a reason for that. They're not motivated. That's why they're disengaged. But you have to understand that when somebody is just those people are always, talking bad about the company, too much work, too much this, too much that. There's always everything is negative, there's always a problem, and they're spreading that toxic mentality among their peers. That's because they're just plain and simply actively disengaged. And you have to be very careful with that. But if you really think about it, when you have people exhibiting those behaviors, what do we usually say? We say, well, they're not a cultural fit, right? I'm sure you heard that before. When somebody's like emotionally expensive and just, being negative all the time, we say they're not a cultural fit. What is culture fit? It's values, right? We have our core values. What motivates people? They have to be aligned with the values. So if they are not aligned with our values, they will not be a cultural fit. They will be unhappy and they will be actively disengaged. And that is why it is so important in the hiring process to make sure that you hire around the core values. Because if they're not aligned with our core values, they will not be actively engaged and they will not be a high performance productive phase. They can fake it for a little bit, especially if they're really, really smart. Anybody can fake it, but they will not be a long-term fit. At some point, they're going to turn toxic. They're going to, their performance is going to drop and they're just not going to give you what you need. So it's very important that you understand what engaged versus disengaged is, so you can recognize it and, obviously act quickly. Now, when we talk about motivation, right? I guess that's the million-dollar question. How do we motivate people? How, so we can make them do what they need to do? So there's a difference between how can I motivate this person and what motivates this person. You see, it's very different. How versus what. How talks about giving something or like something from the outside, right? How it's like, how can I do this? It's like, I'm going to give you something. So it talks about motivation that comes from the outside. And then what motivates this person talks about internally what already motivates that person. And, FYI, the secret, the secret that nobody tells you about, everybody's already motivated. You don't get to motivate, people are inherently motivated. Now, a lot of people get motivated by compensation, but there are different forms of compensation. We usually, when we talk about compensation, we automatically think financial compensation, money, but that's not the only compensation. So we have the financial compensation or monetary reward for work, and that is an extrinsic motivator. So it comes from the outside, it's eccentric, and includes all forms of salary, bonuses, and every kind of financial incentive you can think of. Then you have emotional compensation. The question, do I enjoy my work? Perfectly illustrates this. You have social compensation. Do I like the people I work with? You also have psychological compensation, which can be summarized with the question, am I learning and growing in my career? And finally, you have spiritual compensation, which is best expressed with the question, is there some deeper meaning in the work I do beyond just making a living? Ideally, you should have all types of compensation for you to be fulfilled in a job, in a career, in a work setting. But certain people gravitate to some more than others. So they're going to be like primary forms of compensation that you prefer. So it is important as a leader that you understand the forms of compensation your team requires, those specific people want. Not everybody, believe it or not, not everybody values financial compensation first. We need money, obviously, because we need to, we need to make a living, we need to pay our bills, but that's not everybody's main um, type of compensation, what they value the most. But for the most part, we value all of them in some level. We give more weight to some, but in some level, we want to have all forms of compensation. Now, what I told you before, everyone is already motivated, is true. Many workers are not motivated to do the things their leaders wants them to do, but that does not mean they are motivated. They just aren't motivated to do the things they should be doing according to the boss. Since everyone is motivated towards something, the key factor for you to become a more motivating leader is to figure out what motivates specific people in specific circumstances, right? So you cannot motivate somebody. It is impossible. People already come with motivations that they have. And then you need to find out what that is and then make sure that those motivations align with what you want them to do. And that's when we talked about the worldviews and what creates or influences a person's worldview, their values. How do you get motivated? You get motivated based on, your values and your needs. It's very simple. So understanding that can help you pinpoint what people care about. And that way you get that, you find out what they care about, and you're like, okay, you care about this. I'm gonna make sure that the tasks that I give you are going to, you know, align with that thing that you care about. So if you care about money, I'm gonna be talking about, well, if you perform, I'm gonna give you a raise, I'm gonna give you bonuses. But if you care about making an impact, if that's what you value the most, is that what motivates you, then I'm gonna change my approach. And then I'm gonna make sure that your goals and your tasks are aligned with that, with making an impact, connecting with people, making sure that you're changing people's lives. Same task, but you are communicating it in a different way. So they use their internal motivation they already possess, and they're able to align it with the things they need to do. Now, there are different theories about how to motivate people. So we're gonna talk about a couple of them. So we have the instinctual motivation theory, and this is biology based. So basically, this is your human instincts, something you're born with. Nobody can give it to you. You cannot learn it. This is your own personal instinct that you are born with. So we have attachment, play, shame, anger, fear, shyness, modesty, and love. And then you have the fundamental instinctual motivators, which is to acquire, to bond, to learn, and to defend. Then we have the extrinsic motivation theory, and this is punishment reward based. So extrinsic motivators are characterized by external, tangible objective, incentive, and rewards, including pay and promotions, as constructed with intrinsic motivators that are characterized by internal, intangible, and subjective factors such as meaning, purpose, values, a sense of autonomy, and mastery. So again, extrinsic is from the outside, is external. Intrinsic is internal. So there's a big difference. Now, extrinsic motivation, also known as care and stick motivation, refers to rewards and punishment. Give them something they want or need, or take away something they want or need. So this deals with privilege, pay, perks, penalties, and punishment. And if you, again, remember, everything interconnects. If you look at this, the first thing that should come to your mind is the modern leadership style or the modern worldview, right? It's punishment reward based, but also the imperial style that is, fear and intimidation. So with extrinsic motivators work very well with imperial and modern. Now things start to make a little bit more sense, right? Because everything, it's kind of a little puzzle and you have all these pieces and you have to put them together. So understanding the motivators, you can understand the worldview of a person and then you can adapt your leadership style to that person to properly lead them. Now you have the intrinsic motivators. This is internal, right? And this is based on needs and values. So it talks about meaning, purpose, autonomy, and mastery. People are motivated to engage in a given activity for its own sake because it's interesting and inherently valuable, as opposed to doing the activity to obtain an external goal. So again, when your main motivators are intrinsic, they come from a place of needs and values. I need this. I need to connect. I value loyalty. I value accountability. I value, based on that. So if that what motivates it, if the motivation is mainly intrinsic, then you have to go to the needs and values. That's how you get them, that's how you motivate them based on needs and values. And if it's eccentric, meaning is external factors, then you can motivate it with money. And let's be honest, that's the easiest way to motivate somebody, in my opinion. It will be eccentric, right? Like just give them something, give them what they want, but not everybody responds to that. So you have to understand them. So it's easier for somebody that like me, to try to motivate somebody to, just by giving them something like very transactional, because my leadership style is modern. So it comes very natural. But I have to understand that many, many people are not mainly motivated by that. A lot of people are going to be motivated, in an intrinsic way, and then I have to go with the needs and values. That's how I can motivate them, by making sure that the needs and values align with whatever they're doing. Now let's talk about needs for a second. So we have the hierarchy of needs and we have the fundamental motivator drivers. So let's talk about the hierarchy of needs. It's like a pyramid. It is a pyramid. If a person feels that their safety or security is being threatened, it will be difficult or even impossible to pay attention to the higher needs of success or self-actualization. So again, you're not going to be able to move to the next level until you master the first one. So you have to, the most basic one, you have to master that and then go to the next need, to the higher need. So for example, survival, that's food and clothing, basically. That's an example, like having food in your table, a roof over your head, clothes that you wear. So that is the first need. You cannot be successful if you don't have food. You cannot get to the success, need. You cannot fulfill your success need if you don't have food, if you don't have clothes, if you don't have a roof over your head. It is almost impossible. You need to fulfill, that's your most basic need. You need to fulfill that first. Now, all of us here, thankfully we have food and clothes, right? So that's fine. Now we go to the next, safety. With safety refers to psychological safety or physical safety. You want to feel safe, you don't, like if you're like in a war zone, you're not going to feel very safe, right? So if you, let's say, in Ukraine right now, you're probably not going to be thinking about success or self-actualization. You want to make sure you don't die. So again, safety is very important. You need to fulfill that need to be able to move to the next. And very often, have you heard somebody say, you want them to succeed and you're pushing them and they're like, I don't really care about, I don't want to really grow right now. I just want to be, I just want to have, my mental health is the most important thing. I just want to have some balance. I just care about just, peace of mind. That's what I really care about. I don't need to be a leader. I don't need to make more money. I mean, that would be nice, but that's not what I care about right now. My mental space, that's what really, having a good balance. That's what I care about. That's what's most important to me. Just peace of mind. That's what I value. That's what I care about. So those people are probably in the safety, security need, and they haven't mastered that, you know, because somehow they don't feel safe. So if you're not psychologically safe, you know, obviously you're not ready to go to the next, to go to the next stage. So that's why you're gonna get stuck there. And it's very hard to push people when they're not ready, So again, you need to feel safe first in order to go to the security and belong. And the security and belong is basically you want to belong. You want to, again, you want to belong, you want to connect, you want to feel like you belong in a certain space. And then once you master that, then you have the success and the status need. You want to achieve, you want to conquer, you want to be the best. And then finally, self-actualization. And that's really like the self-awareness where, your highest potential as a human being, basically. So it's like your personal growth. Like you have reached your highest level of personal growth, and that's when you're like ready to kill it. You know, Ideally, we should all be in the self-actualization where, we're performing, we are meeting expectations, and we're killing it basically. But you're not going to have that need. Again, we're talking about needs right now. We're not talking about stages or anything like that. We're talking about the needs. You're not going to feel the need for self-actualization until you fulfill your other needs. You're not going to feel the need to succeed and to have status until you fulfill the other needs. So being able to fulfill all your needs is important, but understanding the needs of your people, where they are, you know, it's going to help you lead them better, understand them better. Now, in the other hand, we have the fundamental motivator drivers. And regardless of gender, culture, or age, we have three motivating drivers. And one will be your dominant driver. So you have power, affiliation, and achievement. So again, it's like you're going to have one is going to be your dominant. So most of us have all of them, but one will be your dominant. So power that aligns with with the imperial and modern. I'm sorry, with the imperial style, and then the affiliation that you want to belong and connect. That postmodern, but also traditional. Believe it or not, remember traditional wants to belong. The bureaucratic, they they love to follow the rules and tell people what to do, but they want to belong. So affiliation, that driver um, applies to both traditional and postmodern, the postmodern that want to connect and all of that. And then the achievement driver, that's usually modern, like the modern style that they just want to win, achieve, succeed. So you see how your drivers affect your worldviews, your leadership styles. So again, it all interconnects. Your motivation and your values, they go hand in hand, and that's how people view the world based on these things. So this affects the way you view the world, hence your worldviews, hence your leadership style. Now, the need for achievement has a strong need to set and accomplish challenging goals, takes calculated risks to accomplish their goals, likes to receive regular feedback on their progress and achievement, often likes to work alone. Again, usually the modern style. The need for affiliation, wants to belong to the group, favors collaboration over competition, wants to be liked and will often go along with whatever the rest of the group wants to do, doesn't like high risk or uncertainty. And the need for power, wants to control and influence others, likes to win arguments, enjoy competition and winning, enjoy status and recognition. Now let's talk about values for a minute. Um, When we ask the question, what do they care about? What matters to them and what is important to them? We are essentially asking, what do they value? Find out what people value and you will know what motivates them. To motivate somebody, you must help them see why doing what you want them to do helps them achieve what they care about and how it is an expression of their deeply held values. If you don't know what your employees value, then it's certainly going to be difficult to motivate them. So again, if you want to motivate employees, you have to, you don't give them motivation. That doesn't exist. You have to find out what they value, and then you have to help them see how that, what they value, aligns with what you want them to do. And that's how people become engaged. That's how you get engagement in your team. If you do this, again, it's not easy. It sounds easy when you put it in a slideshow, when you say it aloud, but the actual reality, it's not. And I'm just gonna give you here, this is like a cheat sheet. Remember in the other class, I gave you kind of like a table of how to motivate different styles. So if you go to motivate, it really gives you kind of a summary of how to motivate each one because obviously it tells you what they all care about. So for example, for modern, offer financial incentive, perks, recognition, and status, create competition, right? For postmodern, you're going to point to opportunities to be more inclusive, promote equality, learn, grow, and connect in meaningful ways, highlight ways to make a difference. You just want to make a difference. They just want to connect with people and make a difference. So use that. So traditional, invoke higher authority, the truth, and doing the right thing. Emphasize belonging to a worthy cause. Fear and guilt also work extremely well. And then the imperial, offer immediate payoff, challenges and dares, tied back to getting respect, clout, and power. Again, if you understand what motivates people, you can use it. So I gave you the example last time we talked about the leadership styles. I'm going to give you the same example just to, be cohesive. Medical management, for example. So for a medical management person, they have goals. And so with a modern person that care about achievement and succeeding, you give them KPIs and you say, I need you to schedule X amount of surgeries. But for a person that's postmodern, they don't care about that because what they value is different. They have eccentric motivators. So modern have eccentric motivators. They care about external factors like more pay, status, recognition, bonuses. But somebody that's postmodern, that they care about the values and satisfying their needs and making sure that the values align with, whatever they're doing, you have to say, well, if you schedule X amount of surgery, let's say you schedule 20 surgeries, you're helping 20 people. You're helping 20 people get better. So you don't ask them to schedule 20 surgeries to meet a KPI. You ask them to schedule 20 surgeries because they want to help 20 people. 20 people that are going to get better. 20 people where you're going to make a difference in their life. But right now they cannot get out of bed because they're in pain. But once they go through the procedure that they need, they will feel a lot better. And they're going to get compensated for it. They're probably going to be able to buy their first house. They're probably going to be able to send their kids to college. You're making a difference by scheduling that surgery. You see a difference? Same thing. I still need my 20 surgeries. But you relate the message in a different ways because people get motivated in different ways. Just find out what they care about, and that's what you go for. And that's it for today. Let me stop sharing my screen. This was a long, 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 long session. So we only have a few minutes left. Questions? Questions, concerns, doubts? I don't know if you like it was too much information and everybody's just like
Yes, me. It is a lot of information, but I have a question on the about the needs. If somebody is in the safety place, is there anything that I can do to move them from there? Because as per what I understand, that's like personally. If you're in a place, you have to go to the next level. So can someone around me help me to move to the next level? Can I help my teams to move from that stage?
It really depends. That's a need is something that you need to feel to fulfill yourself. Like you need this to be able to, you're not gonna worry. Okay, so you're not gonna worry about success. I need success. I need to be successful. It is a need that I have. That means that my other needs were already met. So it's not like you need to get them there. It's in order for me to care about something, to need something, my other needs have to be met. So it gives you kind of like a mental map of where they are at. And you also can see, you can see if somebody has the potential, but they're just not ready for that next step, you know? And yeah, if it's in your hands to help them with that need, for example, if somebody's worried about food and clothing and you can get them a paycheck, you're already satisfying that need. So yeah, you're helping them there. But there are certain things that you're not going to be able to help with. It's they have to fulfill that need in order to, need something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if they're not ready, I just have to wait until they're ready.
But it really depends because we're talking about different things. We're talking about needs and values, For example, you want somebody to be a supervisor, right? You want to grow a leader. Part of being a leader is that you need to coach people and grow them and lift them up and hopefully make them leaders too. That is part of our job as leaders. So you want to, this person, and you like, but they don't care about it. Like I'm trying to push them to be a leader and they just don't want to. This helps you understand. If you understand that they're just not there, it's not a need yet because they are in the safety. They're still trying to fulfill the safety need. You know what I mean? If they don't feel like they need it, they're not going to care about it. So it helps you understand where they are at, right? And helps you coach them. And I mean, again, you're going to be able to help with some things, but some things are just not in your hands. But at least as a leader, you understand what that person is. And that way you're able to communicate better because now you understand what they need. And how do you motivate people? You know what they need and you know what they want, what they value, what they need. So you're going to be able to motivate that person better because you understand what they need and what they want. You're going to be able to engage them better and you're going to be able to communicate better and lead them better. But they might not be ready for them to be where you need them to be.
Okay, thank you.
All right. One more question before we end the session. I know it was a heavy lecture today. I'm sorry. All right, so I'm gonna give you some homework. So again, like I've said from the beginning, this is all it's cool. It's cool information. We're learning about new, theories and concepts. This is all great, but if you don't put it into practice, it's not effective, it's not efficient, and you just wasted an hour of your life here. So please put it into practice. Especially that last slide where it shows what motivates people. Ask the questions, ask the right questions, learn what motivates, what they value, what they care about. So let's just say that. So ask, have a little meeting with somebody in your team, 10 minutes, and just ask a few questions. Try to find out what they really care about, and then pinpoint what they value the most. Okay? And then the exercise is once you pinpoint that, try to, whenever you give them a task, try to give them a task aligning it with whatever they care about. Okay, so first you ask the questions, you find out what they care about, what they value the most, whether it's eccentric or eccentric. It's hard for me to pronounce that. Anyways, and then when you give them the task, try to say it mimicking that. All right. Does everybody understand? All right.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, guys. Have a great day. Bye.
See you, team. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.